Major transformation is needed within the farming sector if we'd like to see more growth and stability in the years to come. Black farmers now face new barriers and challenges trying to enter the agricultural sector. Chief Economist at the National Agricultural Marketing Council, Sifiso Ntombela, joins me now to discuss this. Thank you very much. It's great to have you on the show. So, I want to start off with the idea of land distribution and the fact that it's often a very hot topic. But land redistribution, is there any way that that can be meaningful or successful if we do not also see inclusive growth and transformation of the agricultural economy to allow for meaningful participation by black farmers?
Thank you very much, Anlie, and good evening to you and good evening to your viewers. I think as you start off with the land reform, it's important to recognize the three pillars of the land reform. And I think it's maybe perhaps to zoom into the one that talks to the agricultural economy, which the land distribution is speaking about. I think it's very important that as much as it's needed to drive the redistribution of land, but without proper system of ensuring that land that you do redistribute remain productive, in the long term in the agricultural sector, it becomes actually a detrimental in terms of the food security. So it's very important to actually ensure that before we even talk of deepening the land distribution, which is necessary and must be upscaled, but the system that maintains the productivity of that land is equally crucial.
So historically in South Africa, there were racial barriers to entry into the agricultural sector, excluding black farmers. You say now those barriers have become class-related. So talk to us specifically about changes within the agricultural structure that happened between 1995 and 1996, which resulted in the popularization of private commodity associations, and how those associations, while doing very good work in terms of bringing South African agriculture into the global market space, have been to the detriment, perhaps, of black and developing farmers?
I think it's very important. You know, the transactional period, at least it pertains to agricultural sector around 1995 and 1996. It's probably one of the most efficient time we've seen in the agricultural sector, where government decisions were taken with efficiency and the speed. Within the period of about 24 months, there was that deregulation of the agricultural markets, which basically removed all control boards as well as the regulation of the food prices. But equally also the making South Africa becomes the part after the signing of the Marrakesh Agreement, which made South Africa to rejoin the WTO. All those were very good decisions and very proper, because we've seen them in terms of how they've upscaled the agricultural production, which has doubled in terms of volume. But what remains the challenge, you remember that for more than 100 years or even more, not only just apartheid, under apartheid era, but even under the colonial system, that the black farmers were legally, legislatively and programmatically excluded into the agri sector. Now, during that transitional period, while it was necessary to deregulate the market and ensure that South African market is integrated to the global market, there was not much system that was put in place to ensure that the black farmers in particular are included into the formal agricultural economy, for that matter. So what are the issues that we've seen? For first, you'll recall that in terms of the agricultural financing to start off, is that the closure of the Agricultural Credit Board, which was the system designed to cater for those farmers that are considered to be credit unworthy by the commercial farmers, which means that the black farmers, as we know them till today, are unable to secure the agricultural production loans. But also in terms of the other system that was broken, which is what is required to ensure that the black farmers are moved in place. Now you have what we call the Commodity Association Group, which I think they've played a remarkable role on the last 24 years to replace the South African agricultural economy, not only in the domestic market, but in the global market. But I think the key here is that government cannot outsource the transformation and the development of the agri sector. It is a very expensive exercise to do, and I think the reorganization of government policies so that they create a system that can be able to incorporate the black farmers is what is currently lacking, which was mainly demolished during the transitional period. And I think the private commodity association group, which they've tried their part, cannot be the one that are positioned to drive that process. It is the government with its institutions such as the likes of ERC, the OPP, and the likes of them that needs to be repositioned to be able to drive the transformation as well as the developmental agenda into the sector.
Sifiso, speaking to many developing black farmers, a lot of them will tell you that the state-funded institutions who are meant to drive transformation are not doing a good job. They provide insufficient support to farmers on a practical level. The land bank is not functioning as it should be. It's practically defunct. So how do we capacitate state-funded institutions to once again be the drivers of transformation and to adequately support developing and black farmers to enable them to access the agricultural economy efficiently?
You are absolutely right, and all those commenters that put that there's sufficient evidence that prove that what you just said now, Anlie, that it is true. And I think what start with, let's really look at the purpose of this institution, legislative. What is their mandate? And I think most of these institutions, which probably a fact that we have to review properly and establish the underpinning factors behind it. Most of these institutions, first, they've lost the technical efficiency, which tends to drive these operational deficiencies that we see around them. And how do we ensure that the programs that are run by different institutions of government that are driving, including also at the provincial level, that can be able to be coordinated in the system that will be able to upskill these black farmers? I think here the big message that I'm really trying to revive amongst our colleagues within the agricultural economists and advisors of the sector is that there was, whether it was intentional or not, there was a concerted effort that really deteriorated the system that will be needed to ensure that you de-racialize the agricultural system, but you support those that are marginalized to the level that can be able to compete with their counterpart in the commercial sector. And what that needed first is that while we're driving the land reform program, it must be linked into the production support as well as the farmer support program. Now, we're not only talking about the financial support to the farmers, particularly in the black farmers in this case, but it's also revival of the capacity, but also in terms, it's not only about punching more money without necessarily understanding the mandate and the technical operational efficiencies that is needed, where you have the land bank that will be providing the production loan as is required. You have the ARC that have the necessary capacities and institution to provide such a basic system as soil testing and providing disease management. You have the OPP that can be able to provide the vaccines, but also you have the provinces going back to providing the technical support to the extension officers, as well as collecting the information that will be able to inform the farmers to make decisions. And that information is not only needed for the black farmers, it's needed for any farmer, regardless of his race, so that he's able to take the correct decision and that right time during his farming operation as he required. And these are the kind of system that is possibly to the large extent collapsed during the last 22 decades.
But tell us now, Sifiso, you speak of a lack of technical proficiency, of a concerted effort to destabilize transformation efforts. What caused that? Where do these concerted efforts come from?
I think we've seen a very large movement of those that used to be servicing the government in the very first decade of the agricultural sector. Mainly with white proficiencies, with white professionals that were providing the technical support within the agricultural sector. There are many reasons behind what was the cause for that. And I think it's one of the fundamental factors that is required. But secondly as well, it is also the movement of the technicalities that you need at the right position so that they can be able to take the correct decisions. Because farming is about being on the land on a daily basis and ensuring that you provide the necessary support at the time when you need, because it is a system that is dependent largely mainly on weather and its time constraints. And if you do not provide the necessary support or the tools that are required for the farmer to be able to farm in the right time, you have lost the opportunity because of the weather patterns that it is. And I think it's that kind of understanding that the agricultural economy, it is first a business, and the system must be able to allow a farmer to make a decision. it is not necessarily the government that must make a decision on behalf of the farmer. And by reviving those technical, which we continue to speak of, that the farmer must be able to access those assistance that he requires so that he can take the decision he needs to produce food, which is what his business is about.
Sifiso, I'm going to give you a comparison here. Government programs for transformation and development would, for instance, as an example, give 1 tractor to 5 farmers to share, which anyone who knows anything about farming knows that that's not practically feasible. 5 farmers cannot plant or harvest together with 1 tractor. So that 1 tractor, the cost of that tractor has effectively gone completely to waste. Contrast that with private programs, private business programs, like, for instance, and this is just an example, SARNIC, that is not government funded, that works effectively in terms of capacitation of farmers, that has developed and released, I don't know, countless commercial successful black farmers into the market who are able to practically compete in that market globally as well. They're now exporting. So comparing those 2 scenarios, is it possibly not a solution for government to go into more private partnerships instead of trying to move funding back into state funded institutions that are failing?
Aline, I really like the comparison and the scenarios you've broken. And let's start with that that program you're speaking about in the SARNIC group in the red meat industries. Remember, because it's basically creating and we've seen it also with the poultry industry. It's basically creating what we call contract farmers, which will forever be reliant at the SARNIC group in terms of the benchmark that it creates. So beyond that benchmark, a black farmer can never grow beyond that. And we're saying systematically what you are doing, you are creating a ceiling point for that farmer to grow. And what I'm trying to say here is that by you ensuring that, first of all, let's start with the land, which is what agriculture is about. Allow those farmers who are able to purchase the land, and so that they can be supported, so that the government doesn't only become the buyer of the land. Create a system for that, so that the farmer can take his decision on his own. Secondly, allow them in terms of the institutions that will then provide the input, so that he can then be able to purchase the input, because he take the decision for that matter. Yes, it is important to have those partnerships with the likes of the SARNIC group, which the Commodity Association already play that role. We don't need necessarily to have those, because they provide those technical support, they provide those inputs. So the farmer can be able to process that technical information according to his unique circumstances that are in his farm. But what he needs to be able, when he needs the production finance, he gets it at the time that he requires it. When he needs to have this soil testing to be provided, he gets it at the time when he requires it. And that's what the institution back prior to 1994, yes, there were some of the challenges that were there, but they were able to provide those kind of systems. And to the large extent, we have reversed that. And that's what, for me, I'm saying, as much as the partnership do play the role, but they can only play a role to a certain level, and they on its own, they create some of the barriers. But the farmers are capable to do that, and allow them the support so that they create, first, the technical that they need, but also the patient that they require. Yes, there will be those that will fall out, which is part of the market forces as they grow, but the bulk of it will then naturally grow into the level of the commerciality that we need. And that is the system that I'm speaking of, that it has to be created. And it has to be created mainly by the government institution, because they are supposed to be providing that public services in the first place.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. For anyone watching this evening who thinks that an agriculture discussion does not touch them, think of your grocery shopping trip. That produce is produced by South African farmers. If we do not support our farmers, we are going to have a food security crisis in South Africa very shortly. That was Sifiso Ntombela from the National Agricultural Marketing Council.